Okay, colleagues. So, distinguished ministers, colleagues, members of the IUCN community, I'd like to wish a very, very warm welcome to what I think is a really significant and very important high-level panel on renewables, grids and nature. And we're gathering here at the World Conservation Congress in Abu Dhabi at really a key, at a pivotal point in human history. There are so many changes underway. We have good news on biodiversity conservation, but we've also got some significant challenges that we still need to meet. We have got good news with respect to the rollout of renewables, but we still have so many challenges that we need to meet on the energy transition. But I think one of the things that we need to take stock of is that the renewable transition is now accelerating at an unprecedented pace. Last year alone, renewable capacity expanded by 15%, and that's reached an amazing 4,500 gigawatts of clean energy, a real signal for the direction of travel. We also learned, I think it was last week, I'm looking to Gauri, I think it was last week, we learned that renewables are the single largest source of electricity generation now globally. So this transformation will also define the trajectory of our planet. And we, those of us who are conservationists, this is in our interest as well. The energy transition is just as much an interest of conservationists, as Manuel will tell you, as it is for those who are interested in the energy sector. And so we're asking a real key question. How do we ensure that these transformations, these necessary transformations, these transformations we need to see urgently, really support and underpin biodiversity rather than undermine it? Because we've known from the past history that when we see large-scale rollout of any sort of infrastructure, biodiversity and the livelihoods of people who rely on biodiversity tend to come off second best. This time we've got an opportunity not to follow that trend, but to set a new pathway. Now, for over 70 years, IUCN's mission has been to conserve nature's integrity and diversity. And today that mission, this reality, means that our mission must now extend into the very heart of the energy transition, into solar farms covering thousands of hectares, wind turbines on our landscapes and seascapes, and the hundreds of thousands of kilometres of new electrical transmission lines that will need to be put in place to connect new energy with people. So let's be clear about the scale. Connecting the renewable boom will require a massive expansion of electricity grids. We're talking about $1 trillion in grid investment in the coming years. And obviously, as I say, these are hard-built infrastructure, so these grids aren't going to be invisible. They are going to cross forests, wetlands, grasslands, savannas, key coastal ecosystems, and they will be intersecting with migration corridors, flyways, protected areas, indigenous territories. And here lies the dilemma. How can we build quickly? We do have a climate emergency, so none of us want to see the rollout of this slowed down. How do we do this quickly, but at the same stage make sure we are not sacrificing nature or sacrificing the livelihoods of people who rely on natural resources? And so this is why the Global Initiative for Grids, Nature and Renewables, GINGR, is so important. It embodies the integrated thinking we need, recognizing energy security, climate stability and nature conservation are not competing priorities, but interdependent imperatives. We face three tightly interconnected crises that amplify one in each other. Warming temperatures, accelerate species loss and push ecosystems towards functional collapse. Degraded ecosystems, and let me give you an example on this here and the risks we actually face. Last year we did the first, IUCN did the first systematic assessment of the conservation status of mangrove ecosystems globally. We found out from that 50% of mangroves, despite it attracting a lot of attention, a lot of good conservation effort, but 50% of existing mangrove ecosystems face collapse by 2050. The principal driver is not land use change or fuel wood collection, it's climate change. So an example of how these crises are actually degradation, biodiversity loss, climate change are all interconnected. Another example, last year we did a reassessment of the risk of the red list of ecosystems for coral reef species. We comprehensively assessed the risk of those species for extinction. 44% of coral reef species are now at risk of extinction. Before that, when we did the previous assessment, it was 30%, which we thought was bad. And next year we will now do a systematic assessment, or we'll complete a systematic assessment of coral ecosystems, and already the signals do not look good. So all these things are absolutely interrelated. So renewable energy and the rollout of renewable energy is part of the solution, but its climate benefits need to make sure that we're not undermining, they don't undermine the biodiversity benefits either. And so that's why GINGR's work with partners like the Renewable Grids Initiative is so important. For over a decade, we've shown that dialogue and collaboration between grid operators and conservationists can produce solutions that are mutually beneficial. Equally, I'm delighted to say Gary and myself signed an MOU between IUCN and IRENA yesterday to really pursue this type of collaboration. So that brings us to this session. Today's high-level panel, and Tinne Van der Straeten, the former Belgian energy minister, will be leading us through a high-level panel. I'm getting signals from Antonella telling me to get off the stage. So Tinne, I think at that stage I will hand across to you, and you can take it on from there.
Thank you, Stuart. Thank you, Stuart. And indeed, we have a very distinguished panel. I would like to start with a quote from David Attenborough. Recovery of our planet starts the moment we choose to act. And all of you are invited here today because you have all chosen to act in all of your different portfolios. And as Stuart has said, we want to talk about the topic how we can pursue our targets together. It was in this country 2 years ago, the UA consensus at COP, that we would triple renewable energy capacity, but we also have this objective that we want to protect 30% of the land and the water. You are all I will pass you my mic in a second. You have a vast expertise in everything that is nature, environment, conservation. And so with GINGR, we would like to listen to you. So what we can learn from you, what you can bring us from your experience. And I would introduce you as we go. And I will start with the minister from Vanuatu, Ralph Reyemvim. You are quite a champion with regards to the High Ambition Coalition. You from Vanuatu, from the small island states, real climate champions. So as an environment and a climate action and also an energy minister, what can you tell about those different objects? How can we achieve them and pursue them together from your experience?
Thank you, and thank you for the honor of being on this panel. So I think our experience of Vanuatu will not be transferable to most countries. We're a small island state, 80 islands, So we need grids on each island. We can't tie them up. We have a very small population. Most of our population did not have access to grid energy. So this will, as we electrify, our national energy roadmap target is 100% accessible energy by 2030. And as we put the grids in, it's the first time people have had access to grid electricity. We're not shifting from fossil fuels, so that's actually a good thing for us. So we're moving straight in with renewable energy. We're doing smaller grids based around communities. And I think the most important lesson from Vanuatu is that the traditional owners own the land. And so the communities are the ones who decide about where the renewable energy projects go, how big they are, and whether they can happen. And so involvement of the local communities is key because they're also the resource owners. So we have our 30 by 30 target. It's very easy to achieve it in the marine environment. We have achieved it because over 95% of Vanuatu is ocean. And so for the ocean, 30%. On land, it's very difficult. It's very difficult to get that 30% target. But almost all communities have decided the center of the island, which is the mountainous area where people don't live, will be part of that 30%. And so this is a decision of the resource owners. They are also the managers, and they are also the ones who are the beneficiaries of the new projects that come in. And so I think we've managed to find a good balance between biodiversity conservation and rolling out new renewable energy projects because it is the communities who decide. And the communities have to take over the management. We bring in the private sector to operate and manage the grids after they're installed, and always the community sits on the management committee. And so that is the way we're trying to address this problem. And I think our biggest challenge is finding the right technologies and, of course, getting the finance to be able to enable us to get that rollout by our target date, which is only a few years away. Thank you.
Thank you. So to align these objectives, citizens are key in Vanuatu. Your Excellency Juan Carlos Navarro, Minister in Panama. Is that the same in Panama? Is it different? We heard you speak in the opening ceremony already, very inspiring, but what is the case in Panama?
Renewables are here to stay. And they are here to stay for one reason. Because of the economics. You remember that famous political campaign, "It's the economy, stupid," in the United States? Well, for us it's the same. Renewables are here because they make economic sense. And this is true in Panama, in Vanuatu, here in the UAE, and in the world over. The world of energy is changing even faster than the geopolitics of the globe. And this is very fast. Because not only is climate change now forcing us to look at ourselves in the mirror of what we're doing to destroy our natural world, and for the first time ever in the history of the only planet with life in the entire universe, this issue of climate change, and for the first time, humanity impacting climate because of fossil fuels, is forcing us to decide. But the fact is that renewables make much more sense than any other source of energy. Look at what we have done in Panama. Already, on average, in a good year when we have good rain, we have about 75 to 78% of our electricity coming from renewables. And we have a good grid, not perfect, but it's so far enough to guarantee electricity to most of our population. We have pockets of indigenous peoples without access to electricity, meaning they don't have access to the world. So this has to change urgently. And renewables are the perfect recipe to be able to take, especially solar with batteries, to be able to take energy to every community throughout our country. The fact is, though, and we will run into this throughout the world, that a new factor has emerged. Not only is solar now the fastest and cheapest source of energy that you can install, and that is why we are living a solar energy revolution worldwide, but also the fact that we now have these needs for gargantuan, unimaginable amounts of energy from data centers to feed the AI that will eventually imperil humanity. Oh, I'm sorry, I was quoting Stephen Hawking. But since we're on a race to the death with AI, because we have decided that come hell or high water, we're going to build this AI even if it kills us. What this means is that we need more energy, and we need these gargantuan amounts. So, what is the technology that can provide it? No question. Part of it will come from renewables. Another option, such as small-scale nuclear. But no matter what option we choose, we need to put the energy right next to the data center for AI. And we need to invest in intelligent grids that are also resilient. And this is easier said than done. In many countries, to build a new power line, it takes decades. Environmental studies, the very correct consultation that has to take place with the community, and so forth. And people think that that is the hard part or the challenge. No, not only do we need to build new grids and also repower existing ones, but the key is the software. Because renewables, especially distributed solar, is changing the energy landscape, and it has been changed forever. It will never go back. Distributed energy meaning the energy that you generate on your own roof with a net meter, for instance, if you are a home or a commerce. So we need grids that are smarter than we are, so that they can decide where to send energy from and where to provide it to, while at the same time guaranteeing firm power. You need AI for that. So, again, AI or death, or rather AI and then death. But in the meantime, renewables.
In the meantime, renewables, and as you laid out, massive investments that we need for huge energy consumption to come. So if we need to build that massively, then the question is, where are we going to build if we at the same time want to protect 30% of land and 30% of water? So nature conservation, nature positive, and the build-up of renewables need to go hand in hand. So Manuel, let me come to you. Manuel Pulgar-Vidal, a former minister from Peru, but also former COP president. What is your take on pursuing these objectives in parallel so that they can reinforce each other?
Thank you, Tinne, and thank you for this opportunity. So, if I were to title this event and even GINGR with a motto, I would say deploy by enhancing, because it is to deploy renewable energy by enhancing biodiversity protection. I think that is a strong message. And why I am saying this, because when it is about not Latin America, let me focus on South America. When it is about South America, we have already shown to be very effective in conservation, in protected areas, in expanding that coverage. Even Panama, Juan Carlos has been involved on conservation for decades or more. But the point, it is not just about that. It is how can we continue protecting ecosystem, biodiversity, and species while deploying renewable energies. That is the big dilemma. The point is what is happening, what is limiting us to promote that connection in between renewables and protection or conservation. And that is why the importance of GINGR, because GINGR, it is a good ingredient for the umami taste. The idea it is that we have to bring this new taste to our mouth to promote that connection. So let me share with you some ideas. First, we are limiting by policies. We have to rethink our policies. South America, it is fully captured by the trap of the fossil fuels. South America has not yet understood well that we have to transition. Why? Because we have available resources. We have natural gas and we have oil or hydrocarbons. The point is that we have to switch that mindset. We have to convince by showing what are the value and the advantage of turning into deploying renewables. But when it is about policies, and let me add governance that can connect biodiversity with energy, we are unfortunately not yet well connected. We are fragmented. Look, friends, I used to be Minister of the Environment of Peru for almost 5 years. Juan Carlos, it is current the Minister of the Environment of Panama. And we all recognize that in most of cases we are the tiny piece of a big machinery. So when it is about of discussing with the Ministry of Energy, and in our case in Peru, Energy and Mines, it's so difficult because they have the power. They have that economic power and resources. We, in the environment, we are tiny. So we have to use all of our energy to deal with that. I am convinced that we have to start to rethink the governance. In some countries, they are switching into being not environment, but ecological transition. Or as in Costa Rica, environment, climate, and energy and mines. So try to connect in some way. And to do that, what we do need also it is to bring policy into the Ministry of Finance by developing carbon pricing policy or to reform fiscal policies. Because if we are not able to bring this connection in between conservation and deploying renewables into the Ministry of Finance, we will fail. They must be convinced. But also there are some other limitations. The law and the contracts, even the concessions. The point it is that we are trapped sometimes because of long-term concessions that have already committed to some operator for a long term. So we have to go into that detail because sometimes the trap is there. And that is why I do think that those are the kind of things that we have to focus on. Let me finish this intervention by saying something that it is so important. How to manage the incentives. Because part of the problem in many Latin American countries, it is subsidies. Subsidies to fossil fuels. Ecuador, look the crisis in Ecuador. It has been just because of an attempt of the president of raising the price of diesel by eliminating some subsidies. All the people went to the street. It's the same in Peru, for sure in Venezuela. Probably it is the highest level of subsidies, it is in Venezuela. So it is very difficult to deal with the problem with those subsidies. So we have to work in eliminating the subsidies as well promoting good incentive to deploy renewables. Let me finish by saying the connection it is to deploy renewables, to protect biodiversity and achieve the objective, and also to bring into this equation critical minerals, because critical minerals is strongly related to deploying renewable energy.
Thank you. So if I would summarize what you've said, I would say what was also the message of the opening ceremony: united with nature, we strive. So let me pass to another place in the world, Mr. Suzuki from Japan, director of the Biodiversity Strategy Office. Manuel said, environment, we are so tiny. But in Belgium, we say if you are tiny, then you have to be smart. So if environment is smart, tiny, what would be the smart way that you use in Japan to combine renewable energy targets and nature conservation targets?
Thank you very much. And I think in Japan, environment is very tiny, very small, and comparing with the Ministry of Industry, our power is very limited. However, those renewable energy is very, supported by society, and people would like to see more renewable energy within their electricity use. However, on the other hand, most of the solar panels are constructed in our Satoyama landscape. Maybe it is not so popular, but it is a landscape we used to use for fossil, the firewood and mushroom and all the wild vegetable. But those underused landscapes are now covered by solar panels. And now about 20% of our energy supply, electricity supply, is provided by renewable sources. However, in the cost of those precious cultural landscape, so we are looking at increasing the renewable energy ratio to 40 to 50% by 2040. However, those Japanese community who have very serious concern about the coverage of mega solar panel. So I would like to say, regardless of the size of the ministries, we need to earn the trust from local community to have energy transition and best suited energy balance into our community. We need to earn trust from local community, and we need to adjust incentives and also benefits to local community, and to have those community involved in those decision making. That is our challenge, I think.
Yeah, and the same challenge as I heard from all ministers here. Let me come to you, Mr. Kons, also Director General in Germany, for everything that is biodiversity and environment related. Germany is the last years well known for a rapid deployment of renewable energy through the fast permitting scheme at European level. So you moved quickly when deploying renewable energy. What were the challenges that you were faced with when to combine this with biodiversity targets or concerns?
Yes, the biggest challenge was that we had to learn. We have no problems with renewables and nature conservation because we had the problems with nature conservation before renewables came. And we had lots of species who had conflicts with wind turbines, so were in a bad conservation status before. And now renewables come and add a new problematic. And everybody blames the renewables for the decrease in the population of species. And we had to acknowledge that it is not the renewables that are the problem, but the conservation efforts in the past that were the problem. And we all have a common responsibility to solve this problem, and not only the wind energy or the solar energy has to solve the problem of nature in Germany. This was a very important point to acknowledge. And then we had to move forward and do quickly a very sophisticated spatial planning, because in Germany we have a high density of population and very less land availability. So we had to plan exactly where to go, and there are some key indicators. The first one is we put the renewables there where they are most effective. So we had to install less wind turbines, for example. So we go there where the wind is strongest. We want to place the wind turbines there. And then we had to see that we have protected areas. They are strictly protected, and we say that there is no use for renewables. And then we have to see that we make beside of all that a strong conservation effort for the problematic species. Like in Germany, it's the red kite. For these species, besides the installing of the renewables, so that everybody who has to sign the permission for a wind turbine is sure that he is not signing the death of a red kite. And at least we have some good mitigation. We do invest much in mitigation. So, for example, we had a curtain of bubbles in the ocean, so that the dolphins don't hear, or little whales don't add harm to their ears from the echoes from the wind turbines in the ocean. And so this is but the key is the spatial planning to mitigate the conflict.
Thank you. Madam Singh, we have here in our panel 5 convinced ministers or DGs of renewable energy, and it's clear that they need it in their countries for basic needs, for citizens, but also for the industry. You are the Deputy General of IRENA. What can the renewable energy community and the renewable energy organization like IRENA, can we bring to these people to help them? So how can we build, what is your perspective on how we can build out renewable energy capacities and also the grids in order that we help them so that they, as they say, that their administration is only tiny, but that we can overcome this being tiny and that we, in a certain way, we de-risk them and we help them so that they can be happy and that we don't give them more sorrow when they have to clear vast spaces for renewable energy.
Thank you so much, and thank you for having me. I think what we've heard from the panelists is really so important because as we are moving towards our tripling goal, and we are moving very rapidly, the growth of renewables year on year is a spectacular 15%. So we will actually reach, where we intend to be by 2030. But the question is that while we are focusing a lot on the supply side, on the deployment side, I think enough attention has also to be paid for bringing the ministries of environment and energy to speak the same language. Now that is really a challenge because in most of the countries we find that that you are actually talking to two silos. And how do you break these silos this is what is going to be the most important part of moving ahead. And I think partnerships like what we've signed with the IUCN yesterday will help us talk to both the communities. Because I think for IRENA, we have a very strong community of ministers of energy who are now seeing the cost, the economics of moving with renewables. This is this is really unstoppable. It's going to increase. But I think the challenge really is to bring the Ministry of Environment fully on board to come up with a policy that looks not at just deployment, but it looks at the entire life cycle. So right from, planning, the manufacturing, the siting, the permitting, and to also see how the end of life of renewables has to function. So it has to be a very holistic policy, and EU, for example, has got a policy with the environmental dimension, but not too many others. I have to say not too many others, which is why I think, we at IRENA need to strengthen this collaboration that we have with IUCN, with Clean Action, with the Convention for Migratory Species, but bring out practical guidelines. I think the key here is no one really wants this pace of renewables to slow down because this is really one of the key mitigation aspects that we have for climate change. But I think what we need is guidelines for siting, for getting the operations done. And very critically, I think GINGR will play a very important role because this is transmission networks are really in many ways they are the I think the sleeping giants.
Yeah.
Because no one really talks about transmission because because the glamorous part is seeing the solar farms and the windmills coming out. But transmission is an area where not much investment is happening, so that needs to be speeded up. But how do you speed up something that's so critical for the growth of renewables in a nature positive way? In a manner that can actually work to provide the core benefits for society that you want to see for renewables to move ahead. So I think that would be my sense, and I just want to also just add that at IRENA we also think that without local communities, this is not a revolution that will really be sustainable. So local communities have to be involved and have to be a part of it.
Thank you. We have to close this panel because they are signaling that we have 5 minutes, but wait. she has given you now more work. But she said that you had to come up with even more policies. So for the closing statement for each one of you, what would help you? What would you need then from your energy colleague so that indeed we can break the silo? Juan Carlos, let me start with you.
Very briefly, the situation has changed so dramatically that we need to invest time and our best minds, perhaps even AI, to come up with a country strategy that makes sense for each of our citizens and for our most important sectors, so that we can harness the power of efficient, renewable energy in the smartest way with the least environmental impact, beginning with biodiversity, in order to guarantee clean, abundant, good quality energy with energy security to every part of our population. This is easier said than done. So for me, the recommendation is first, stop and think. And by the way, we had this conversation on Tuesday in cabinet, right before I hopped on the plane, and that's what we decided to do. We're going we have a team of people looking at the issue to come up with a strategy involving local communities, indigenous peoples, private sector, citizens.
Take a step back, think, act together. Ralph, what would your recommendation be?
Well, as you can see, my ministry, where we take it all together anyway. I just need to add minerals to my portfolio, then it should be all right.
Mr. Suzuki.
Okay. So we need to tell energy people that there is no future for them if they are not taking up environmental issue. And in 2050, Ministry of Environment will be much larger than energy sector.
Good. Mr. Kans.
I think what we have to underline is that every dollar spent on planning is an investment in the future, and it makes permissions faster. So a good spatial planning is the base of everything, and so I think that is what I would stress to my energy minister.
Manuel, I think these ministers will be going to COP in Belém. You were a former COP president also. This COP will also think about how far are we with tripling of the renewable energy target. All this in mind, what would your recommendation be?
I think that we have to bring this relation in between renewables and protecting nature to the heart of people. And to do that, what we do need to show it is that this relation, it can create benefits related to jobs, related to health. Health, it is so important for people, related to development and to competitiveness. So if we are able to communicate well those benefits, we will reconnect with people and we will be more able to progress in our targets.
So we have a lot of work to do, Madam Singh, also in the working relationship between IUCN and GINGR then.
No, absolutely, and I think, the good thing is that with so much renewables getting deployed, transmission networks getting put out, resilient grids coming forth, what's happening is that the technology challenge per se is not that huge as it was, say, a decade back. People, the countries know what needs to be done and how it has to be done. Policies are, getting there in most of the places. But I think what's not happening is the power of people is not getting unleashed to the extent that we need, because in any city, for example, no one is really bothered about whether it's the green electrons that are flowing or it's the gray and the brown that are coming through. So I think it's really now the time to unleash the power of people, the power of local communities to take us where we want to be.
And I think that is the perfect summary also of this session. We talked about energy with, except for you, people that are not competent for the energy policy. So this is also the first time that we talk about energy not in gigawatts, in capacities, in lines of grids that we need. But we talked about people. And so the key thing, the Swiss knife, let's say, to break these silos is to talk about people and so win over the hearts and minds of people. So I would thank you all for this very valuable contribution with which we will work in GINGR and to convey your message to all energy experts in our network. Thank you very much.